Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Giant Take podcast. The season is finally done after the Giants just happened to lose another game as the cherry on top against the Philadelphia Eagle backups, 20-13. And it honestly seemed like they flipped their momentum or whatever that was, because after a dominating 45 points put on the impoverished Indianapolis Colts, only 13 on Eagle backups. And honestly, the season was capped off by what I thought was just the most interesting sequence of plays ever. You had back-to-back penalties that would have led the Eagles to punt the ball and had the Giants give them one more 2-minute drill with Drew Lock. They eventually actually did so, even despite the penalties, one of them by Kayvon Thibodeau, who ended up having a sack in this game, which I believe marked 5 on his not atrocious, but pretty poor season, not living up to that number 6 pick. However, Drew Lock had one more chance, right? One final, let's do this thing to drive the team down the field, but without their star. Malik Neighbors, after being in on for the first play of that final drive, went to the sideline, didn't come back on the field. Why, you ask? The answers we don't have. What are you resting him for next year already? I don't know why he wasn't there. So, la di da di da, we continue on. And then eventually, again, full circle, throws to Jalen Hyatt on a corner route where Jalen Hyatt just doesn't even turn around. He probably still doesn't know that the ball was intended for him to catch, doesn't turn around, ball gets picked out of the air, and that's how the Giants season ends. A 3-14 record. Yeah, that's what this 2024-25 season has been. I'm Josh, enjoying my friend and co-host Alex. Alex, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well, Josh. I don't really know how to describe the emotion of the end of a football season because usually for me it's very much a kind of somber mode, at least for the Giants, because I'm like, I don't get to watch Giants football again for whatever, 9 months now. But in this particular season, obviously the Giants very much struggled, and I'm not having those same feelings. It's very much a thank God we're in the off season now. The Giants obviously aren't in the playoffs. I get to enjoy playoff football, I guess, stress free, which I've been able to do most years of my life. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm going to lean towards a bad thing, but it's a common feeling, but just a more annoying feeling after, I guess one, you know, decent year with Brian Daboll and kind of the expectations going up for this team. Maybe the standards would be higher and 2 years back to, I guess, normalcy with the Giants now. But the game against the Eagles, I felt like was a every year Week 18 game for the Giants, or a Week 17 game before that even. Um, it was just a game that we're once again playing one of our divisional rivals who's probably already won the division or is already in the playoffs, and you're wondering why is their team so good that they can play with their backups and still beat us or still come close to beating us, and that their second roster, their whole backup roster, is able to compete with our starting roster. And it was that case with the Eagles. It was that case with the Cowboys a few years back. I remember. I'm sure there's countless other games that you can reference, but that was the main feeling. It wasn't even really watching the game. It was like, here we go again. This is Week 18. Thank God it's over, but the standards have to be higher going into Week 18. The Giants have to be competitive. Whether it means you're on the brink of making the playoffs or you've already made the playoffs, at least the playoffs are still in play late in the season. That's the most important thing. That's what keeps fans going. And that's what keeps the team going because, quite frankly, Josh, we were talking about it probably weeks 13 to 16. This team really just didn't have a lot of effort going. And you could see that on the football field. And it kind of felt that way for the most part, again, here in Week 18 as well against the Eagles.
Yeah, Alex, and you look at the quarterback play from Drew Lock, 22 for 29, which I guess is good for completion to attempts. 138 yards, though, a touchdown and interception thrown. So not a great day for him. Rushing the ball for his final game of the season and his rookie year, Tyrone Tracy, 14 carries, 59 yards. He said after the game, he's like, I think I could really do this running back thing. If you all remember, this was really his first season playing running back. Tyrone Tracy in college was playing at the wide receiver position. So completely transfer positions, which you don't see coming at an NFL level where you switch positions. And he's done an absolutely phenomenal job at that. So we saw that final game from him today. Malik Neighbors had 5 catches for 64 yards again and a touchdown. Had that magnificent touchdown in there. A very nice job keeping the toes in, reaching for the pylon, scoring the touchdown. A very, very nice job by Malik Neighbors. Waldell Robinson had even more action, just less yards, 10 catches for 43 yards. Someone that, again, you really hope sticks around. Well, he'll be sticking around, but I think more of a, can he progress to look even better than he does right now? Because he looks like a pretty solid wide receiver 2 or 3. And Jalen Hyatt, again, just nowhere to be found, except on that last play where he doesn't turn around, the ball gets picked. So just horrible there. Kayvon Thibodeau with the sack and a half today. Haven't seen him all year. Congrats to Kayvon Thibodeau. Thanks for showing up in the final game of the year. And then getting that costly penalty, which, again, continues the Eagles' drive because you hit the quarterback's face, which is going to be a roughing the passer any day and all day, the easiest call for the refs to make. Yeah, I can't. And then we saw Graham Gano. Shout out Graham Gano with the 53-yard field goal. Cool. That's my Giants recap. Giants lose 20-13. What do we see for the future now? That's a question that we want the answers to. Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen most likely, I say, will be sticking around for next season. Giants, they have player and team meetings this morning, and then they have exit interviews for the players. So between Giants ownership and Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen will most likely be later today or even tomorrow. We're recording this at 8:30 in the morning on Monday. Nothing so far. Gerard Mayo got fired from the Pats job within minutes of their final game. Absolutely insane. Shows the level of competitiveness that I guess the Kraft family has for their organization. And when they don't have that, they don't like it. However, this was the first year with a new quarterback. I don't know exactly what they were expecting with a lackluster offense and no wide receiver talent. But okay, maybe Super Bowl or bust, I guess. So that's where they stand. And shout out to Gerard Mayo. I think he did a fine first season. That's what I got.
Yeah, hope he gets another chance somewhere else because not a fair shake for him. Whether he can kind of climb himself out of the firing hole for head coach, I don't think he'll have that kind of stigma that comes with a lot of people who've been fired as head coaches, where they have to go back to the college level or as a coordinator. And I think Gerard Mayo, might get another crack at it and should get some head coaching interviews this cycle. But yeah, I don't see. I mean, Jay Glazer said that Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen were safe. Schefter said that Daboll and Schoen were safe. I don't know. I was about to go Adam Daboll, but it's Brian Daboll, as we know. But I think it's the wrong decision, but it's not the worst decision, Josh, if that makes sense, because you can go the route of firing Daboll, which is just the wrong route. You could go the route of firing both of them, which isn't which is probably the better idea. And then you could go the route of firing Joe Schoen, but leaving Brian Daboll up to the new general manager, whether he wants him or not. I was a fan of that plan. Initially, I was not a big fan of what Joe Schoen has done with the New York Giants, but I do think this head coaching cycle is going to move quickly, Josh. And, you've seen teams like the Patriots already fire their coach. I assume there's going to be at least 3 to 4 to 5 coaches fired today. This cycle doesn't have a lot of talent. You've got the Lions coordinators, you've got Mike Vrabel, you've got maybe a handful of other guys, but there's going to be competitiveness to get these guys in. And the Giants are not going to be the most appealing job. they've got the third overall pick, they've got mediocre cap space, and the roster is pretty bad. So teams like the Patriots with a franchise quarterback and 130 million in cap space, teams like the Titans who have, if Brian Callahan actually gets fired, but who have the number one overall pick. Like there's more enticing positions out there. The Bears are going to be a very enticing place to go with a franchise quarterback and a great offense already. So there's going to be better jobs, and I'm not sure the Giants are going to be one of the top contenders. So keeping Brian Daboll around, I do think makes sense. And if you're going to do that, I guess it makes sense to run it back. I guess that's John Mara's thinking with Joe Schoen, but not super happy Schoen is sticking around because I do think he's made a number of errors, but it's not the worst decision to make to have them both stick around. But I think firing them both or firing just Schoen would have been a better decision probably.
Yeah, firing Brian Daboll and keeping Joe Schoen just doesn't make sense, especially with what they're going to have to do with then finding a new coach. And then what if that doesn't work out? And, it's got to be both or none. And it looks like it's going to be none. And mind you, by the way, the New York Giants are going into probably one of the hardest schedules that they can ever be playing next season. They're going to be playing NFC North opponents and I believe AFC West opponents. Like this is going to be a schedule next season where regardless of who's in the building coaching or being the general manager of the team is going to lose games. This team is going to have a losing record. So if you go into a spot where you fire Brian Daboll, you hire a new head coach, you keep Joe Schoen, looking mid-season next year when the team has won 1 or 2 games, what do you say then? So the Giants fans are going to be outraged again and calling for Joe Schoen's name, but then you keep a head coach and then you look for a new GM. It just doesn't make sense. It makes sense to keep both of them. But then at the same time, if they really are going to do that and they keep both of them, Joe Schoen needs to tell the Mara Tisch family, whatever it may be, of what that plan is. If they're drafting a quarterback, if they're going after Travis Hunter at 3 in the draft, because whatever that plan is, next year it's gonna still look rough again. Like Giants fans, I will tell you this right now, it's going to look rough again next season, no matter what they do. No matter if they draft Travis Hunter or if they draft Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, that does not matter. It's going to look bad, and that is purely because of who the Giants' competition is next season. And I know things change in the NFL, but basically those entire divisions are in the playoffs. Like, well, at least the NFC North. If you're looking at like the AFC West, it's a little bit of a different story. But these are really strong divisions in the NFL, and especially if the Giants are even playing in their own division. It's the first time this team has lost all games in their own division. This season was the first time that marked that. And if, the Cowboys improve, I don't know if they will, but if they do improve, and then you have the Eagles and Commanders be like what they are right now, even our division is one of the best in football. So, yeah, it's going to keep going down before it goes up, unfortunately. I will say that. Regardless of what happens with those guys. But again, can't speak towards it right now. I'm sure we'll have an episode because no more previews to do. So we kind of get to make our own schedule now. So we'll wait a few days around here and see when that owner / GM press conference is. If it will happen, because the Giants might have to find a new GM. I don't think that'll be the case. So hopefully that happens later this week, that we get an official announcement that they're back, and then we'll hop on the mics and kind of talk about what that means. But for right now, not really much to recap in this game. It's over. It's done. Season's finally there. We've been saying it for weeks, for months now, when we've been waiting to record that final preview / recap. So here we are. Alex, any concluding statements?
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably talk more about the season throughout the offseason, but there's really not much to take from it except this is a bad roster. It was coached badly, and it was badly constructed. And I think that's as simple as you can put it. And the Giants now, I guess kind of to round it out, we have the number 3 pick. Thank God the Patriots won because the 4th pick would have been pretty disastrous for the Giants. But you get either one of the 2 top guys in Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward at the quarterback position, or you get the best player in the draft, the best player in college football in Travis Hunter, who, if the Giants were to draft, of course, there'd be the conversations about whether he plays both sides of the ball or just corner or just receiver. But that's, I guess, the fun discussion we'll be having over the next, 2 to 3 months is that debate between those three guys. Because I think it's pretty clear cut that that's the direction the Giants would go in. At this point in time, of course, they could end up reaching for a quarterback with Joe Schoen on the hot seat if Shador Sanders and both Shador Sanders and Cam Ward are off the board. That's, of course, always a possibility, but that's kind of the setup we see going forward. I don't think free agency is going to be too, big in terms of spending, in terms of roster additions. I think Joe Schoen will be aggressive, given the fact that they may be picking a rookie quarterback, but I'm not expecting many big splashes in free agency, especially with giants like the Patriots with over $100 million in cap space, just able to put the cash around everywhere. And I think they're going to have a really, really big offseason, obviously. So that's basically my offseason outlook. I don't really want to look backwards, Josh. I know you kind of feel the same way because it was not a fun season. It was not fun for us to cover all season either. It was a rough 18 weeks, I will say that, covering this team. But it's still always fun to talk football, no matter how bad the Giants are.
And with that being said, we have some NFL breaking news right now. So, like to round out this episode, as we knew we were going to have head coaching moves throughout the week, the Jaguars have officially made their major move. They just fired Doug Peterson within the last 2 minutes at the end of a frustrating season. What happens now, though? GM stays in Jacksonville. So you talk about a situation where the head coach goes, GM stays. The new coach, though, will report directly to Shad Khan, the owner, which I think is pretty interesting. And then, yeah, so I thought that was pretty interesting that Ian Rappaport mentioned that in his tweet. So there you go. Jaguars making a new move. Head coach Doug Peterson gone. Doug Peterson, coordinator, New York Giants, calling your name. Offense, defense. What do you want? Pick a spot, any spot. I don't know, man. So yeah, that's a matter of though. If Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll are gone, what about Mike Kafka? Right. What's going to happen on offense, because Daboll said in his press conference he respects Kafka, yet he took his play calling privileges away and said, I'm going to do it. And look what happened when he did it. Not saying Kafka, did much better, but he did have that playoff season when he was play calling. And then,
Shane Bowen too.
I
I
was
think
gonna,
he's
yeah, I
very
was gonna
likely to
say
be the
Shane
scapegoat.
Bowen is, yeah, I was gonna say Shane Bowen is gone. You'd have to think. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Giant Take podcast. Giants versus Eagles recap, not so much. Thank you so much for listening and or watching this episode. Follow us on our social media platforms at the Giant Take Pod. I'll be posting, anything I can on the TikTok or Instagram Reels, whatever it may be, about what we get visuals from the Giants right now.
Giants, breaking news for the Giants. The Giants are retaining both Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen per Adam Schefter as of 10 seconds ago.
Wow.
There's a statement by John Mara. I'll read it now. Now that our season is over, we felt it necessary to make a statement. Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll will continue in their respective roles with the organization. As disappointing as the results of the season have been, Steve and I remain confident in the process that Joe and Brian have implemented in their vision for our team. We look forward to the future and achieving the results we all desire. Yes, the Giants went 3-14, but they are retaining their head coach and general manager. Not as we discussed, we kind of assumed this would be the case, Josh, but
now confirmed.
Now confirmed, I guess. So
right as we're ending the episode, let's record a whole new episode now. Giants retain Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll. That should be the title, not even the recap.
No. Well, I mean, luckily we talked about it in a way that was happening, and that is the decision. But I mean, so those thoughts basically stand. But it is a interesting way to go about it from John Mara for sure, and I'm surprised by his patience, to be completely honest, considering I think we know how tied to the team's results he is and how much that affects him personally and his mental health on the day-to-day basis. So, especially with the Saquon Barkley stuff and all that, I am a little surprised he was able to put that kind of beyond him and kind of look towards what at least he thinks is best for the team going forward.
Well, Alex, I'm so glad that Steve Tisch has come out and said that he's confident in Joe Shane because I haven't heard Steve Tisch come out and say anything since about 2022. So I'm glad that he's still
Yeah.
going and kicking around there.
Josh, he finally found reception off his Bahama island that he's on, or wherever he is in the Bahamas, or in Barbados, or
Listen, as
the
long as he's
Caymans.
making money, that's all that matters because that's more
Yeah.
money for the team. So there you go. Brian Daboll, Joe Shane, officially, according to owners, I guess, John Mara and Steve Tisch are, returning for another season with the New York Giants. Let's see what that draft prep's going to be, Joe. Please don't show him on Hard Knocks again. I don't need John Mara
Please.
claiming that he is the biggest Saquon Barkley fan of all time. I'm sure he is, and that wasn't a lie. He seemed very interested in Saquon. Well, he doesn't have him. Saquon's chasing a Super Bowl. The Giants are chasing the third pick. Here we go. That's the confirmation right there. Fabrizio Romano to tell you that one. Yeah, that's what it is. Okay, that's it. Now we're good. We have the official statement. Joe Shane, Brian Daboll back. You know what? I'm just taking the reins here, Alex. I'm taking you away from your outro here. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening or watching. We'll see you next time. I guess I don't know when now because we got the official statement, so we don't need to have the mics in 3 days when I thought we were going to get the official statement. So we'll see you soon. We'll talk soon. Thanks so much for listening and or watching. Peace